There. Hello, everyone. This is we like to call it Eklund Eve around here because my birthday's tomorrow.
Congrats. So it's 50 what?
49, actually. People say they're 49. I literally am 49 tomorrow. That is not just like I'm not just turning 49.
But you say it like militantly. Like I just knew you weren't 50, but when I said that, I knew I was going to get you.
I'm really turning 49 tomorrow, and so I can say this about everything because I have another show on Saturday night that I'm playing in. So I got to play a show in my 48th year and my 49th year, which is pretty good.
That's good.
Believe me, Zach, I'm already there, and it sucks.
Yeah. I don't know. We've talked about this before with people, and they always say that they'd rather be early anything than late anything. Like to say you're early 50s versus saying you're late 40s. They say they'd rather be early, something.
No, I'll always take the lesser. I'll be late 40s instead.
I'll take late 20s.
Well, I felt the show was great, by the way. I never got to talk to you guys about it, but it was really fun. And a lot going on. It was really, really fun. Kevin Allen came in to watch it. That was a blast. I mean, Kevin has been a mentor for me, and to see him watch me perform like that was so much fun, and talking about everything afterwards. And I mean, we had people fly in from everywhere. We had people fly in from Miami, from LA, from Albuquerque, from Chicago. It just makes you realize how much easier touring is when they come to you.
That's why one show a year. That's why Billy Joel plays Madison Square Garden, because everybody will come to him.
Right. I mean, it's so. And I said that to everybody. I'm like, it's really nice because I mean, why we really stopped doing this was because we hated to travel as much as we did. So, this way, if we can just do it like this, and everybody's willing to just come to us all the time, that's great. But I don't think it's going to be an all the time thing. So I think they just saw it was kind of a unique show. This is this Saturday night we're doing it again in Philly. So it's going to be fun. But and then since it's my birthday Eve, I got sent this from sorry about that. that's my BB-8 just went crazy with it. I got sent this from, now those of you who are in southern Florida near the Tampa area will recognize this. This is Kilwins is a really awesome chocolate ice cream type place on what they call it's near Sarasota, and it's on what they call the Circle, which is called St. Armand Circle. And it's like
is that Circle? Is that where they go on the overhang for the expressway and shoot people? To shoot the car? Because that was in Sarasota. All right.
No. This is actually not Sarasota.
It's not in Chicago, Russ.
Between Sarasota and Longboat Key, where they get and they I told my in-laws that I'm one of my resolutions I was talking to them over New Year's was to lose weight. So they were nice enough to send me bars and bars of fudge, like just which is perfect.
I was gonna send you some of the Buffalo specialty sponge candy.
What do they think? They're like, this guy likes to eat, so we'll give him food. That's good. No, I think it's good. I mean, it's delicious and awesome, but you can't eat much of it at once because it is really, really, really heavy. But it's awesome. So that was nice. That's so you don't have to send. I'm not looking for presents or gifts. I'm just mentioning that because I know the people in the Tampa area watch the show will definitely be like, oh my gosh.
I'm not openly soliciting, but if you feel like it,
what the? You want to send food? That's fine. No, just
if you're at the hockey game tomorrow, I'll buy you a popcorn.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
But here, I got a story. So I was, as most people or sometimes do, they just have bad days. And so I thought, I'm having a little stressful day. I'm going to take my dogs for a walk. So I did. And it's a nice day out there. It's like 56 degrees in South Jersey, which is, considering it was 23
ridiculous. Yeah, I mean,
days ago, it's fantastic, right? And
my rink was beautiful last night. Now it's a pond again.
I know. You can't. It's not your fault. Like, this is really the worst winter we've really ever had. So anyhow, I'm walking down the street and I have one Great Pyrenees. She's pretty big. She's like 85 pounds. And then the other one was a Greyhound with me, Jordan. She's, about 68 pounds, pretty solid. But all of a sudden, out of nowhere, a Doberman happens on us. And like people with no leashes and think that they have a handle on their dogs, it is the worst possible thing to have happen. Is even if your dog is a nice dog, to go up to two dogs they've never met and just all of a sudden be in their business because you don't know, right? Well, luckily, this was a nice dog, but all of a sudden the owner comes out. He's got a Cowboys hat and he's got a Dallas Cowboys shirt on. Now, mind you, we're in South Jersey, in Philly, in the Eagles country, right?
That's right there, right? Yeah.
And he's going, here, Dallas, here, Dallas, and
Oh,
the
no.
dog is not listening. The dog went and peed on the other neighbor's tree, and then he finally had to grab the dog. And I'm thinking,
Typical cowboy.
that's a typical cowboy right there. It was perfect name. And now I'm rooting for the Green Bay Packers because to me, that is the essence of a Cowboys fan right there.
His second dog is probably named Aikman.
Or Dez.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's awesome. I thought or Owens. T.O., that would be the worst. That's the worst name you could throw at the dog, but that's awesome. Oh my gosh.
Dallas is a bad name to put on a dog.
To be walking this time of year, like, all the Eagles fans down in the dumps, and then to see, your team's in the playoffs, and you got like 2 quarterbacks, right? It's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, that's great. That's a great story. No, I totally love it. Well, I was the funny thing about like the band, the one thing I wanted to share with me. So I was, we did the show. I didn't do the show on Friday because it was just so crazy with all the sound checks and everything like that. So I'm picking up my son like I usually do right before I go over to Philly, and I'm sitting in my car, and they say on the radio, the guy comes on the radio, and I'm listening to WXPM, which is the best radio station here in Philadelphia. It's a really good radio station where the World Cafe comes out of. A lot of people know that show. And they're like, well, looking at the calendar tonight for Philadelphia, we have Greg Lesses in which is my band, in town on for tonight playing, and the person next to them is like, really? That's I hear like him say, really? Like as if the band's playing, really? Like now located in the Where Are They Now files, So I'm sitting there with my soda, I'm just like, wow.
Yeah, you're the equivalent of that Hugh Grant movie. Like you dusted everything off.
Oh no!
You got
Come on.
I know that.
Music and lyrics is a hideous movie.
It really
It
is.
is
My wife
It's
loves
not
it. What do you mean? Every woman loves it.
It's not hideous. No, it's a date movie, Mike.
It's a
100%.
hideous friggin' movie. First of all, Hugh Grant can't sing, and Drew Barrymore is just brutal.
If I had a penny for every person who came and cleaned my house that was beautiful that could write lyrics, I would be a rich person,
At least you didn't write anything as annoying as that thing you do, because if there was nothing more annoying in life, it was walking out of that theater and having that stupid song stuck.
Haven't you heard that song?
Did I not say that was one of my top 10 songs the other day when we did this? We did the top 10 movies. I mean, I love that thing you do.
Yeah, but they played the song too much.
I love the song. I love everything about it. I love the whole thing. I think it was great. I was really impressed by Tom Hanks. He wrote that song.
Not 10.
I was amazed though. I saw a video of your band and I really liked it.
Thanks.
I've never seen you play, right? So that was an odd thing. Seeing
Eric
play. It wasn't as odd to see Eric play. I don't know why, but that seemed more normal. But for you, it seemed odd. I have no reason why. Maybe because I just picked you as a goalie now. But it was great.
Yeah, no, thanks. I appreciate it. It was so much fun, and actually there was there's stuff out there on Facebook, and we actually did videotape it with a little GoPro. So I'm going to put that up. I'll send it to you. Like it's going to be a private.
I'm going to watch the whole
thing. It's going to be public consumption, but I'll send it out too.
Yeah.
I'll sell bootlegs.
Yeah, it was fun. It was fun. So anyway, there we go. Let's move on. Today's date is the 11th. I know that because my birthday's tomorrow.
Will he know the year? That's the question.
Yes, it's the 7th. Car died yesterday too. That's awesome. Anyway, right out there just talking about $5,000 transmission or something like that. It's not going to happen. I'm going to be walking a lot lately in the next few months. Here we go. Ready? Hello, Hockey World. It is Wednesday, January 11th, 2017.
I'm Michael Agello.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Eklund. You're watching the Hockey Buzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes every Monday through Friday at this time to fill you in on the comings and goings in the hockey world. And got some interesting, like a hodgepodge of things today to talk about. So if you guys have anything to talk about, let me know. Specifically, you can throw it in the chat room. But and there's some rumors, of course, and we're getting a little bit more tuned into some of these rumors. And the real big one, though, is definitely, and I want to start there, is the Landeskog rumors. And I want to talk about them. I wrote them about 2 nights ago. And there's 2 teams that are definitely leading the forefront. And I've heard that it could go down today. So whether or not that happens or not is up for debate still. But there's it's up to the people in charge, obviously, to when they want to pull the trigger. But the price was very high as of last weekend. But then 2 nights ago, it seemed as if Boston was, willing to maybe get in on, maybe up the ante a little bit. And I don't know if that included McAvoy, which was really a surprise when I heard his name mentioned. I don't think that he's going
if they include McAvoy, that would be a real head scratcher. Like that, to me, that would signal desperation to make the playoffs.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think that, and they're in that spot, but I'll read you some of this. Like, I got some really good text about this, but the first text came from another GM in the league who had, kind of tipped me off, and I'd heard about it all day, but I hear about a lot of rumors, stuff like that. But when a GM sends you something, we're hearing that says, hey, we're hearing Boston and Vancouver down here. What's going on? I'm sorry, we're hearing Boston and Colorado down here. What's going on? And that tips you off to like, okay, something is definitely up. And this. So Landeskog, I know for fact there was definite talk with Landeskog. I know at points there was talk with Duchesne, and even Tyson Barrie came into play. Colorado just really wants to do something Sakic really does not want to be taken advantage of. He's one of those. It kind of reminds you a little bit of Cheveldaev in some ways, of just really patient, not wanting to be taken advantage of GMs. But he's in a spot, obviously, because his team's way better than this, right? So he knows that he's got to do something. He's got too much talent for this team. The only name that I have not heard is of course, McKinnon's name mentioned. But there was but Carlo's been a name that has come up too, and that's another name that Boston is apparently they're a big untouchable.
Yeah, and it makes sense for Colorado to want him since he's from Colorado. But we talked about this a little bit yesterday in anticipation we would be talking more about it today. I would be shocked based on, Carlo being 20 years old and already a top pairing guy on that team if they moved him, or McAvoy coming off of the World Junior. But if you look at Boston in terms of the depth in their organization, in terms of defensemen, Ryan Lindgren played at the World Junior, played well. Jeremy Lauzon for Canada played well. They have, the guy that we're forgetting is the guy they took with their highest pick in the first round, Zaboral, who, apparently has bounced back a little bit after a bad junior season.
I just watched him a night ago. It looked really good.
So if Boston's like if there's something to Boston and Colorado and they won't trade McAvoy and they won't trade Carlo, then maybe a Zaboral is an acceptable option to Colorado as part of a package deal. I think that's possible. I just don't see them trading McAvoy or Carlo.
My feeling was, and I said this yesterday, but Eck doesn't know, so I'll say it again. I would ask for Carlo and Lauzon because they play different kinds of games. I already have Tyson Barrie, who's my number one. Neither of those guys are real number ones. And so then I'm really building the depth the right way. I think Boston would be crazy to trade McAvoy. McAvoy is going to be better than all of them. Right. And so like that, I don't see the sense unless ownership. Now here's something that, we never really talk about, but it happens. I've spoken to Emil Francis about it when, he made the Brad Park and John Rattel trade. Sometimes the owner walks in there and says, you have to do something to the GM. And the GM has to just bite the bullet. Like there's nothing the GM can do. After the fact, the GM is the one who sort of gets tagged like, hey, you made this trade. And they're never going to tell you that ownership made them make this trade, but that happens.
It happens every year. And I've seen it. I mean, I know this because I have good relationships with a lot of owners, and I've even talked to people within the organization sometimes who say, oh, you must be talking to the owner, like because knowing that the owner is pushing that's how big the deal is. Like the owner is pushing that. When I say, is this possible, and I always say no, but quite often they're right. I'll say I can't talk about who I'm talking to, but. Yeah, an owner owns it. I mean, it is just that simple. It is the way it goes. It's a business. The owner owns the team. And if you've ever worked for anybody, and the owner comes in and says, we've got to move this to there, you do it. That's just how it works because they own the team and they run the show. Well, the best owners in the NHL, know when to step in and know when not to step in. But at the end of the day, if you're talking about major trades like, Shea Weber for, Subban is the best example. That's a trade that's not made by the GM. That's a trade that's made by the owners on both sides of this thing. That's not, you're not moving Subban out, without the permission of, the owners, and you're not moving Shea Weber out without the permission and blessing of the owners.
Well, the curious thing about this, and I mean, we know that Boston, I mean, they've been wanting to add another offensive piece, and Landeskog would fit into that role. He's making $5.5 million for another 4 years after this year. Now, and we've talked about on previous shows, they're going to have a big ticket item in Pasternak after this year. They're going to have to sign him to a long-term extension. He's scoring like crazy. They can't add a guy at 5.5 along with paying Pasternak 6 unless they're getting rid of somebody big. And the first name that pops up in my mind would be Krejci. But
I brought that up. It's interesting you say that, Mike, and I can go a little bit further on that if I can interrupt for a second, because I talked about that with somebody too, and I said Krejci would be the guy, right? I said the same thing. That makes sense because you're not gonna. And they said actually, Krejci is somebody they is obviously the guy they want to trade. Is a tough guy to trade because of his injury history and all that.
Exactly.
But they said they wouldn't be shocked if Bergeron or Marchand was being mentioned, and that's the level that Boston's at, which surprised me to hear. Okay, because you hear that you're like, okay, wait, you think those guys are untouchable, but they really aren't. And that goes back to
Bergeron is. I don't think Marchand is, but I think Bergeron is.
What they might be scared of with Bergeron is the fact that, and I think Bergeron's 28 or 29. I think I don't think he's turned 30 yet. You look at his contract; he's not a big offensive producer, but he's a capable offensive player. He's got 5 more years at almost $7 million a year, and a player who's got that much wear on him. I mean, he's been beaten up over a number of years, playing that shutdown role, playing a lot of minutes. That the drop off could be pretty quick, but to me, he's the Bruins. He's the best player on that team.
Yeah, I think Eck could speak to this, but I think what happens is teams will ask for someone like Bergeron, and you're not going to stop the conversation because eventually you're going to move him off of Bergeron when you start hearing the other pieces and say, yeah, well, that's good, but rather than Bergeron, what about Marchand?
Yeah, you're right. There aren't that many there aren't that many instances when you do stop the conversation in these situations. From what
right.
I've only been in privy a couple times to actually be lucky enough to be able to be invited and be in a room with people when they were talking about this kind of stuff, and it is really fascinating. But Bergeron's, he is the Bruins. But one thing you have to remember about the Bruins is that there were for many years 2 different Bruins, leading this charge up top. Okay, Chiarelli was one. And then the group that's there now is the other. And so there was a huge – Chiarelli just never got any respect from them. Chiarelli really has been one of the most disrespected guys. He was not really respected for what he did in Ottawa either, which was really important. He wasn't respected for Boston, even though they won the Stanley Cup there, And a lot of the stuff that happened, sometimes a new leader comes in, takes over an organization, and wants the old leader to look bad and fail. Sometimes that happens on large scales, even in countries. And so this was a situation that what you have in Boston is when Chiarelli was gone, the Chiarelli part started to go. If you notice, players that were probably debates that went on over the years that Chiarelli won on were slowly being moved out, and a lot of them were pretty good players, and a lot of them were
Yeah, they moved out. They moved out Lucci.
Right.
And when Ty Anderson was on the show a few weeks ago, and we've talked about this in the past on the show. There's been that movement among Don Sweeney and Cam Neely to move out the Chiarelli pieces, and own what is there themselves. But the thing is, if you look at that team right now, the 3 best players on the team are Chiarelli pieces. It's Krejci.
Oh, they are. And that is not something that they are, and that makes my point, because yes, they are the 3 best pieces on the team, but you can also argue the team isn't that great. So you could say, okay, if those are the 3 best pieces, they don't want to succeed with Chiarelli's pieces. They want to succeed with their own pieces. So if they can make a move to move a big player that was a Chiarelli player for a player that they're bringing on their own, they might do it. And
but I got to tell you, when guys come in and want to do those kinds of things, most of the time it doesn't work out. I'll give you 2 examples that I could think of. The best example is when Phil Esposito took over for the Rangers. I mean, he literally cleaned house. They called him Trader Phil. He made it seemed like every day he was making trades. He even threw out files like important, you know, just like that's to the degree that Phil Esposito wanted to clean house, right? It didn't work. It didn't win him a Stanley Cup.
Nope.
Phil was not a success as a GM. So that's one thing. And then I also think about,
so to speak.
I also think of the Leafs a couple of years ago when they decided we've got to get rid of the history here. The history is sort of weighing us down. Yeah. How did that work out, Mike?
Well, it was ignored. I mean, it was Tim Lewicki, who supposedly is now, along with Dolan, is going to be part of this this group in Seattle that's going to get the Key Arena redone, and that might spur the NHL expansion there. He wanted to take all the pictures down in the ACC and move forward with a new direction, you know, not embracing the past. And once he was out there, the guy that he hired, Brendan Shanahan, all he has done is embrace the past and embrace the tradition of the organization, which, you know, Leaf fans love. I mean, that ceremony at opening night was one of the best things that happened this year. But no, going back to the Bruins, I mean, I will grant your point, Ak. I mean, they want to own the direction of that team. The thing is, though, you know, you're talking about Bergeron, and I'm sure a contending team that needs that one last piece would love to get that guy because he's won a Stanley Cup, he's won Olympic gold, he plays the type of game that you need to play to win. But if we're talking Colorado here, they're years from being there because, you know, there's just not enough pieces there. So like a Bergeron going to Colorado doesn't add up. A Bergeron going to Washington or going to Anaheim or Minnesota or someplace like that makes sense, but not Colorado because they're not even close to being a team that's going to be competitive for the playoffs for probably a couple years.
I don't think they can afford to have this kind of makeover where Bergeron's involved, and that it basically then you're sending a message to the fan base that we're now going in a completely different direction. Right. Everything that you thought about us has changed. You know, the Stanley Cup is in the past, which is fine. You could do that. I just don't think it's a healthy way to go. Now, I understand if Chara was their only leader left and they got rid of him, that's one thing. Bergeron's still a young enough guy. Rask is still their future. Like, I just don't see doing something major like that because then you're really going to be putting things, either it's going to work great or it's going to spectacularly fail.
The flexibility that they have is Backes. Backes is playing on the wing now. They can move Backes to center, so it enables them to either trade Krejci or Bergeron. But if you had to ask me, if you asked me to guess on if one of those two were to be traded in the next year or two, I would say it's going to be Krejci, not Bergeron.
I mean, if nothing else, the Flyers should pick up Krejci so he can't score against them anymore.
Right. That would be good enough right there. No, and I think you're right. And when I bring up Bergeron and Marchand, I'm not talking necessarily about the Colorado trade anymore. I'm talking about more of, the Colorado trade in and of itself. Landeskog, there's also huge interest within LA for Landeskog, and the Kings, that's a great fit for them out there, I did get some things, from like one GM sent to me, like assistant GM, I should say, in this case, sent to me, Cam Neely is just an emotional guy, and you got to watch out for that. Like he's likely to he could do something from an emotional perspective, that would surprise you. There's, now that could be unfair to a degree, that might be just okay. That's like perception or whatever, and maybe not, a fair move, but you'll see this kind of stuff as this goes along. I think the Kings are, the other team to really look for here, because the Kings, more than the Bruins even, have, more to be gained, I think, by making the playoffs, because the Kings feel as if they get to the playoffs, they get Jonathan Quick back, they could still compete. But you look at the current construction of the Kings, and the one thing the Bruins do have that Colorado clearly wants is defense. And if you look at the Kings, unless they're trading somebody like a Muzzin or an Alec Martinez, who's an established guy, the depth of their organization in terms of defense, other than maybe Derek Forbort, is not particularly deep. Now, where I think you could have a potential of a player going back is a guy like, and I don't think they're looking to trade this guy, but Tyler Toffoli is going to hit the jackpot after this year. He's an RFA. He took the bridge deal. He's probably going to be looking for $5 to $6 million range, and this organization cannot afford it.
So if he's looking to make as much or more than Landeskog, maybe they think, oh, but at least we have the cost stability of what Landeskog is making right now. Whereas we don't know what Toffoli's going to be asking for, but he could be asking for so much that we can't fit it under the cap. So maybe there's a possibility of a deal there.
I think the Kings are in an interesting spot because they have guys in the minors. They have guys I like. I think that Roland McKean someday will play in the NHL, but they'll take a long time with him. Cernak, same thing. Jacob Moviar plays for Mississauga, same thing. So they always are going to have defensemen. So it would make sense if they dangle Forbert or even Ken Gravel, a guy like that, who another team might need, just to get one more offensive player, because there has to be a reason they're not bringing up Adrian Kempe. I mean, he's got 11 points. It's not great. Only 28 games. He hasn't played, a lot this year. He's only 20 though, and that's the thing. So they don't want to rush him. So they don't really have a guy they can bring up offensively that's going to have an impact. I mean, we all thought Zykov would be there at this point. He's not. He's got 16 points. He's 21, but he's probably not playing a 200-foot game. So this is where we're at. And so I think I could see moving one of those defensive pieces just to get a depth offensive player, because I think that's all they really need. Just somebody who a veteran guy.
I'm with you on that. They really, they kind of know that. When you listen to Sutter talk, you really do hear a guy. I mean, we've always worried that Sutter's going to just leave at any point. In LA,
when he leaves the house that he's not going to return.
I know. When you hear him talk now, he really sounds like he's going to. Like he really. I mean, besides the fact
he's a hockey genius, right? But like in real life, when you talk to him, he's out there, man.
Oh yeah, he's a hockey genius because whatever he speaks, hockey players speak. Like he's
a hocky savant, is what he is.
Especially Western Canadians, right? Like Western Canadian hockey players really understand him fully. Yeah, there's no question about it. But he kind of, like he could be a Muppet. Like you watch him, like he could be a really well-made Muppet when you look at him giving press conferences, because the way he moves his thing.
That's a nice thing to say about a 2-time Stanley Cup winner.
I'm not saying anything bad about him. He's like one of the best coaches that's ever coached this game. I'm not, and he really has gotten so much out of that.
Muppets are well liked, right?
I think he would probably enjoy the fact that he's being called a Muppet, to be honest. If he enjoys anything. Like he's a hard person to understand. Like
he is a hard guy.
Well, the thing,
I've seen him win the Stanley Cup and not look thrilled about it. It's like
the thing with the Kings is that even though he's having a little better year than he had last year, they're still heavily invested in a guy who's giving diminished returns in Dustin Brown. I mean, I know they love him. I know he's their former captain, but they're not getting the bang for the buck. Marian Gaborik was hurt for most of the first part of the year. He's in his mid-30s. I almost think that, if they take on a long contract like Landeskog, they know that Gaborik is probably going to retire either this year or next year. And that
Gaborik is one of those guys that will show up out of the weeds. And so I think they're banking on that, and they almost don't care. I think he's turned into that guy where regular season, they don't care. He's, Claude Lemieux. He's that kind of guy where it's like we don't even look at Marian Gaborik's regular season numbers anymore. We don't even worry about it.
He's proven a couple times that he can become like a all-star in the playoffs. Like that's what he can do, and then he can stretch from nowhere to somewhere. I wanted to show you this picture because all right. So this picture, Mike, have you ever seen this photo before? Have you ever walked past this?
No, but that's clearly the Air Canada Center because I recognize the
right. So this was when I was at the World Cup of Hockey and I was covering the game and going up and down the stair, the elevator. Sometimes the elevator would take a while, so you'd end up in these back stairs to take the, just to sort of get down there.
Sure.
And I was walking, back, and there's no one. It's these really big empty stairwells. They're like emergency exits, basically, fire exits. I'm sure they're packed when people are coming in and out of the arena with people in here, but
yeah.
I came across the only photo in this whole stairwell that was 6 levels high was this one picture of the '67 Stanley Cup team that was on the wall by itself in this empty prison-like area. And it was to talk about what you're talking about getting rid of the past. It struck me as what? Why? This is the one thing that this is the last time this team won the Stanley Cup, and they've hidden it in a stairwell.
Well, no. There are other pictures of the 67 team around. But the funny thing is, I don't know if you watched any of the Road to the Outdoor Classic, the picture of Mike Babcock's office is just like that. It's got one picture of the 67 Leafs and nothing else in the office.
Actually, I think he had some memorabilia in his picture. I think he literally bought one of those pictures from, a memorabilia dealer because it had something else like on it, some sort of piece of memorabilia. It wasn't just a picture.
It was like it was a puck.
It was a puck.
It was the strangest thing, like to me, like someone thought, first of all, why there were no other pictures hung on any of the walls except for like instructional things like you see there, that they were going on about how to get to where or whatever. So someone actually thought, we're going to hang this picture on this wall in the stairs.
Maybe they're covering up a hole. Maybe there's a hole.
Right. And so if you were to turn around where I took the picture now, it's just another stairwell down. It's like it's continually winding thing that's going down. So this is the side of it, right? Really bizarre. I don't know. Just kind of, it definitely struck me for all the, and there are some, when you walk up.
Maybe you're supposed to stop and look at it and then realize, oh wow, they recycle here. This is great. I mean, maybe it's a stopper. It makes you stop.
I mean, they have some good pictures. Like when you walk from the elevator to the press box, there's some good photos on the walls.
I've been in the Leafs press box. There are lots of photos of announcers and former players, and so I know that. I guess you just picked the wrong hallway.
I mean, it's really funny.
What would you prefer to be there? Like a portrait of Harold Ballard? Would be like a watercolor? Like what were you looking for?
No, but the concept of 1967 has become like like what we used to chant in Philadelphia of 1940. It's like, all right, this is a team that's like that hasn't wins. So they take this picture, and obviously they want to recognize this team, but they want to recognize it in such a way that they've hidden it in a stairwell where literally people, if anyone's in there, no one's going to stop, because if you're in there, you're either trying to get the hell out of there because the place is on fire, or you're trying to.
There are more references to the 67 Leafs than that one picture in that stairwell. Trust me.
So not to change the subject, but just to change it slightly. We'll talk Flyers, but I wanted to mention that German Rupstov is close to. Well, he's terminated. They terminated his deal in the queue, and he's getting nasal surgery. And he sat next to me for the Russia win and then also the American win in the press box, and I saw how bad he had two black eyes. Like when you get a nose injury like that, it looks bad. That's why I didn't report on it, because I'm not a doctor, but when I saw that, I was like, wow, he really looks awful. He seemed like he was fine. He's a tough guy, but after this surgery, he'll go to Chicoutimi, and then I would think he's going to get signed within 2 or 3 or 4 games. They just want to get a little look-see on him, make sure he is what they think he is, and then he'll get signed to his ELC. And that's a big deal, because now you've got him in North America. You could technically play him in the AHL next year if you wanted to, or you can keep him out in Chicoutimi for another year and then put him in the AHL and then put him with the Flyers. So he's a lot closer now than he was. And let's face it, the Flyers are going to need help. I mean, they're sagging. We talked about how this team was probably going to go through some up and down times, and now they're starting to lose overtime games. Now they're starting to the Buffalo game, like, was just almost full domination from the Sabres like that. Other than the Schenn goal, which was just a nice goal, but it was just one moment in that game, the Flyers didn't have much. But again, online I saw Dave Isaac had posted the line combinations. If there's anything you can count on in life, it's death, taxes, and Chris Van de Velde playing every day.
Right.
Like, he's a mortal lock to play.
Yeah, no, and that's nothing against him, obviously.
And on the opposite side of that,
the fact.
on the opposite side of that result, the Sabres have started to put things together. And the thing is, for Rumor Buzz last week, I put together basically a list of the players that from the 2 teams, or 2 or 3 teams that we can etch in stone as sellers, and obviously those are Arizona, Colorado, and maybe the Islanders. And somebody responded to me and said, "Well, what about the Sabres?" And I'm like, "Look at the standings. The Sabres are only 4. They're 3 points behind Toronto. They're 5 points out of a playoff spot. They're, I think, 7 points out of a wild card, and it's early January. They're not going to give up yet, because this is an organization and this is a city that finished 30th place twice and finished, I think, 23rd last year. They want to at least be in the race and compete. And if they are close enough, they're going to probably go right to the deadline before they make a decision whether to buy or sell.
Yeah, I would think they would too. And they did, and they are where they are without, Eichel for most of the year. And
they've endured a lot of injuries, Zach. They've endured all. I mean, Kane, Eichel, Oppozo early in the season. O'Reilly's been out. Bogosian's been out. Anders
Nielsen, their number one. He sure seems like it.
Yeah, I still think it's Leonard. I mean, Leonard is sick right now, so that's the reason Nielsen played, and I guess he didn't make the trip to Tampa. But yeah, I mean, I think when it comes down to it, it's still Leonard is the number one. But Nielsen has done well as the backup, so I don't think they're afraid to go to him as the backup, as opposed to other teams who are deathly afraid of going to their backup goaltender, like the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Right. Now, the other factor in this is. So Mason played.
Yeah.
So he's played 2 out of 3 since Neuwirth's back, but he played okay. He wasn't bad. He wasn't fantastic. I kind of expecting Neuwirth now to play against the Canucks, and if he does that sort of move into Mason's mind that, hey, things are back to the way they used to be? I haven't really won this job.
Yeah, I mean it could. I mean. Like, and I've heard so many people talk about this whole thing, and I mentioned it many times that Mason's a better goalie, when he's playing all the time and not worried about another guy. And of course, everybody, whenever I say that, I get calls from people down there or whatever that say, yeah, that's ridiculous. That's not the case. And it's just, it just goes back to Columbus. It's not even here. It's here and there. And it's been the same in his entire career. And it's hard to deny, right, that Mason was the reason that they got to the playoffs last year, and yet when they got in the playoffs, they still went with Neuwirth because he was so hot at the very end, right? So Mason was really good in the second half of the year last year, and Mason has never been. And this year when they started the season, they started it with Neuwirth as their goalie on opening day, and that was a big blow. I think. Yet Mason came back and showed again that he can be a dominant goalie.
So here's the question: you're a goalie, and this is something I've noticed over the last few years. What's more important, the goalie fitting into a coach's system, or the goalies really just interacting well with defensemen? Because that was the thing when Brizgalov came to Philly, it seemed like he hated the defensemen that were working with him. They didn't let him see the puck. The communication was bad. I've never heard a goalie complain so much. And you kind of wonder now, is this the situation that we sort of look at now in the NHL where the goalie has to really sort of interact either perfectly with the system or perfectly with defensemen?
I think it's a huge thing. I think that with Brizgalov, you saw the very end of one era and the beginning of another one too, because, I grew up playing goalie. When you were, at goalie camps, you would learn to, if a player was in front of you and you couldn't see the puck, to yell screen, to get low. And that's gone out the window. That's the idea is now, I play some open hockey with guys once in a while, and I'll do that. I'll yell screen. They're like, what are you talking about? What are you doing? Wait, what do you say? Why are you so? I've had younger guys say, what do you do? I'm like, you're screening me. It's like, no, I'm trying, I'm blocking the shot. I'm like, all right, well, that's, because the era that Brizgalov grew up in was the era that I grew up in, which was, the era that, you let the defenseman let you see the shots and you made the saves. And, but now everybody tries to block every shot. So,
right.
Goalies are screened all the time, and it's just commonplace for them not to see the shot.
Right.
And that's why you get this positional goalies.
Which is the reason why every goaltender, when anything's in question or in doubt, they drop into the butterfly, they drop down on both knees, they spread out the pads, and if by some miracle you hit the top corner, better, you're then great. But they're covering the low end because they don't know where the puck is coming from.
Right, they have no idea, and you're absolutely right. And so you have to play that way, and that's
basically here, as an example, if you're a new defenseman to the New York Rangers, you have to conform to Henrik Lundqvist. You're not even worried about the coach. You have to conform to Henrik Lundqvist because he's at that point such an institution that is your biggest worry probably as a defenseman, that, hey, you're doing what that goalie wants. And I don't get a good feel which of these goalies, and it's probably Mason, but which of them is the better fit long-term because they play better with these group of defensemen.
No, here's the thing about that. I think you're dead on, because here's the thing about that I've sensed, at least. Mason is they know Mason is consistent. They know Mason is more consistent. And I think all the players get the sense that he's going to be the guy who's most likely going to help you win the game because he's more consistent. And they feel good about that. They also don't expect Mason to steal you a game, and they do think that Neuwirth can.
Right.
And so the feeling I think you get with the defense is like, okay, that Neuwirth, that's why I think that's why they went with them in the playoffs. I think last year, because you're going up against the Capitals, who are the best team in the league. You're going to have to steal games to win. So you're not just going to be able to beat the Capitals by playing your games. And they did. They won one game from the Capitals. They almost won a couple more because Neuwirth was that good. So I think the defense. This defense especially now, because it's gotten younger, with Provorov now as well. Last year with Gostisbehere, who was played, has had definitely a struggle type of a year. I think that defense is more prone to Neuwirth, actually. But I think that at the end of the day, the Flyers are terrified of Neuwirth because he gets hurt all the time. And they think, that when he's bad, Neuwirth has this much wider range. he can be better than Mason, but he can be way worse. Where Mason's in here, and you can see that Mason is always going to be good, and he's always going to be solid. He's not going to give up. Mason gives up very, very few bad goals, what you would call bad goals. But I think
a crazy idea, and this is totally crazy. I don't think the agents would like this. But what if you were Ron Hextall and you offered the exact same 2-year deal with a 3rd-year option to both of those goalies? Do you think they would take it, and do you think that's good for the team?
I don't think it's good for the team, and I don't think they would take it.
Okay.
I think they need to establish a goalie, and I don't think it's either of them. And I think that at the end of the day, that the real issue here is that both are very much good enough to be NHL goalies. They would rather have Ben Bishop. Because they would like to have one guy who they think, okay, Ben Bishop can come in and he can be the guy. And Ben Bishop's had an off year this year and all that stuff. I still think they would throw more money at Ben Bishop than they would throw at either of them.
Well, they better have a hell of a backup because Ben Bishop gets hurt every year.
That's the problem is, what is the backup plan in case A, he gets hurt, and B, you don't even get him?
Yeah, and of course, they're down the line, they're looking at Hart, right? So Hart's their guy.
Right.
So any contract more than, how long is Hart? 4 years away? Throw out there?
3.
I think 3. 3, yeah.
Any contract longer than 3 or 4 years could be an issue for them. So
yeah, but you don't want the contract to end and then have to throw in Hart. I mean, there can be some.
No, so you can go maybe to 5 years, right? Maybe you go 5 years to Bishop. I think that's what they'll do. I think they'll go 5 years to Bishop. I think.
And Bishop's over 30 years old, so I think he takes a 5.
What if they don't get Bishop? That's my point. Is these guys are both UFA, and you maybe get Bishop, and maybe you don't. Like, how do you – this is a big juggling act that Ron Hextall is going to have to do.
Are they worried that Mason or Neuwirth, if they don't go to them on July 1st, are they worried that one of those is going to get snatched up right away?
Then what you do, Russ, is you trade for Mike Smith, because God knows a former Phoenix goalie has never failed in Philly. Oh, wait a second. Sorry.
Oh, boy.
So I think, to me, I don't think they're worried about Mason or Neuwirth getting snatched up right away on July 1st. Like, I think that they think that both. I mean, Neuwirth especially. Neuwirth doesn't get the respect he deserves for the most part, but Neuwirth could end up being a great backup in Vegas or whatever, and taking the job over or whatever. That's the kind of thing he is. Mason, he just doesn't seem to get the respect he deserves either. So I don't think either goalie is going to be. Because who's going to be looking to sign a UFA goalie? I mean, there's so few teams.
Calgary,
definitely. That Calgary will be calling to one of them for sure.
Dallas, possibly. I mean, they'd have to trade one of their 2 mediocres, but they're probably going to be in there.
If Dallas were to get Neuwirth, they could definitely fit him in for less money than the other 2 are making, and try and move one of the others.
Potentially Buffalo.
Yep, Buffalo too.
Yep.
So there's at least 3 to 5 teams.
Maybe the New York Islanders.
But there's other goalies available too, so it's not just who we're talking about. Bishop's out there, Mason, Neuwirth is out there.
Fleury.
I think, Fleury's out there. You're looking at one of them. You would think is going to end up in Vegas. You would think one of those guys is going to be in Vegas. But maybe the Flyers trade one of them to Vegas. Maybe they figure out something. I mean, it's possible. I think that at the end of the day, they're in a spot right now that's a really frustrating spot for Hextall to deal with, because he knows that Neuwirth is giving them a better chance to win against certain teams when he's at his best, but they also know that Mason's going to be such a workhorse for you that you have to go with him, because if you go alternate back and forth, you have a chance of neither being any good. So you're really in a spot. I think the team themselves, and I talk to players and stuff like that, they like both of them, and I think that they see them as very different. It's hard to say, but it's really
and potentially add Vancouver to that list if Ryan Miller goes someplace else.
Right.
So you got 6-7 teams who might be in looking for what a number one goaltender is. But the thing is, I don't know based on the last few years whether either Mason or Neuwirth would be considered by another team as a true number one. They've been 1A, 1B for so long. I think the mentality of some general managers out there is that's what they are, and that's all they're ever going to be.
I think Mason's proven to be a number one. I don't think Neuwirth
he's number one. I do.
I think Mason has done that. I think people do see him as number one.
He's just not a top 10 number one. He's like the top 15 number one.
With the potential to be a top 10 at times.
Yeah.
He's
had moments. He was in top 10 in save percentage. He's had moments.
Right.
Well, there have been streaks where he goes on too, but he's not. But just at the end of the day, is he gonna steal a game, and does he inspire the team in front of him? Mason is he's also a mellow type goalie. That also
here's a question I probably shouldn't ask because we run into this guy all the time, but we do analyze, and I guess we're gonna have to. Is he better than Brian Boucher?
Mason?
Yes, he's better than Brian Boucher. I don't run into Brian, so I can.
A lot of different Brian Bouchers to me. Like there are different Brian Bouchers in different.
Not the backup Brian Boucher, the Brian Boucher that came right.
At his height, Brian Boucher. Because consider Mason at his height right now, which he is, and Brian Boucher at his height, I would have rather had Boucher. And the reason I say that is because I think that they're both consistent, but one is a little bit. Boucher is more of a fiery character, which I think feeds off the team sometimes. And Boucher has the ability to get hotter than Mason.
So you're sort of, you know what? Because of that answer, I think, and I think you're right. But I think because of that answer, you're now making it seem more to me like they are going to get a different goalie. Because what's always happened to Boucher was he would go somewhere, he would either be the number one and slip to the number two, or he'd be the number two and work his way to a number one. But he was so infrequently a number one that it just seems like Mason's going to be destined to have that happen too.
Yes. I think that's the case. And I think that if it wasn't the case, by now you would be hearing about contract talks with Mason.
Right.
Because they could be, and you haven't heard anything. I mean, literally nothing. And I have to think that Mason's agent has gone to the Flyers with some pretty good deals because you can stay here and be he likes it here. His family's here. He's enjoying it. He's really living here, and you can stay here and be the starting goalie.
Mask. I mean, I'm not sure any goalie has more masks than him.
That's true, and you can be the starting goalie on a team that's going to be a playoff fighting team for a while now and has a really good young defense coming up. I mean, this is a good spot for a goalie. That's why I think Bishop could come here and see this as a spot where he could all the young defense that are coming in. But yeah, it's a fascinating point as we go along here.
Mason is making $4.1 million right now on an extension. Say for example, it's what Russ was saying, 2 years with an option. So say 3 years. Does he get more than that? Because
he gets like 5.5.
He gets 5. Yeah. I see. I don't know about that because Russ, use the benchmark of the goaltenders who've been signed recently. Freddie Anderson signed 5 times 5.
Right. Freddie Anderson didn't have the track record that Mason does.
Yeah, a 5-year deal would be surprising with Mason.
And that's why I go 5.5 because he's taking less years. He's going to want more.
Yeah, he would probably take 3 or 4 years.
So you think he's going to get a contract like Mike Smith because Mike Smith is 5.6 something.
Yeah, but his was longer term. I think he's going to get paid more money for a shorter term.
Deal. Okay.
Yeah, and then because Stolarz will get some time as well. Yeah. He'll become the backup, and then Hart comes in, and you got Hart and Stolarz basically combination for a while there. That's what it seems to be. And and Hart seems to be the real deal 100%. So that's of course Flyers fans never want to hear that with the goalie, but he seems to be the real deal.
No, he is. And
it seems like
they have others too in case they're wrong. I mean, Felix Sandstrom was fantastic. I mean, he really was.
Right. No, the Flyers have known they've had goaltending issues. They've made it a priority to draft goalies the last couple years. So here's an interesting thing I saw here. So this is it's up there. These are the jerseys for the All-Star game.
I heard about I heard about these.
I like them actually. I mean, what are people saying? Are people hating them?
No, I just heard. Go ahead, Russ.
I think they were confused because when I looked at the list at the roster, I didn't see anybody named player on it. But other than that, I think they're fine.
Yeah. There's barely one on 2 teams.
I didn't know Gary Player was a golfer and a hockey player at the same time. No, I mean, yeah, when they announced the fact that the jerseys were going to be this variety of colors of the LA Kings over their 50-year history, I was intrigued. I was hoping for a little more purple, but
that's foreign blue to you.
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, there's 2 black ones basically, which is what's.
Oh no, the one on the left is purple.
The one on the left has the foreign blue.
It is purple-ish.
Yes,
it's purple.
Okay.
Listen,
I know it's cool.
Dave Taylor will tell you it's foreign blue. Are you going to argue with Dave Taylor?
Yes.
Foreign blue.
You won't. Absolutely not. You will back down. I guarantee it. That guy. You look at that guy's chin. You won't f with Dave Taylor. There's no way.
I'll get.
I don't remember.
I'll get Marcel.
Foreign blue being in my Crayola 64 crowns colors thing. So I'm trying to. I can see that there is like a royal. It's royal blue, basically. You're saying?
No, it's not royal blue. It's not.
I mean, they're the Kings Grand Out. Shouldn't it be royal blue?
No.
It should be purple.
Yeah.
I like the yellow one a lot. I think the yellow one's cool.
I like these. These are not the fuggliest jerseys we've ever seen for All-Star games.
No, and last year's were a little bit out there.
Yeah. No, these are good.
Pretty good.
If there's one that I don't like a lot, I have to question the white with the gray and the black. It's a little monochromatic.
It definitely harkens back to the Gretzky Kings, though.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, and that version of the Kings always gives me nightmares.
Yeah, it's funny
that
I know, and the funny thing about that jersey is in all the retro things that we've seen, the Gretzky Kings jersey has never been one of them. Like that, they've never brought it as it was probably the most popular selling jersey in the NHL for several years.
Yeah,
the black and the white one, and yet they've gone back to the yellow and they've gone back to the purple, and they stuck with what they have now. But you never see them go back to I'm really surprised. I guess they're waiting for their next outdoor game or whatever to have to bring back the Kings Gretzky jersey, which was at the time it was. I mean, maybe it was because it was just because it was Gretzky or whatever, but it was so unbelievably popular.
No, but these are cool. I think these have a real good function. I think it'll be fun. I think the All-Star game will be good. I think we talked about the rosters yesterday, and there were some glaring omissions. But again, Mike did point out, made a good job of pointing out sometimes with the way when you have these sort of gimmicky All-Star games, the roster construction becomes like a little fluky when you got to fit in somebody from every team.
There are certain guys that are just going to make the All-Star team from now on, basically the way it's set up. So you have to just write off those guys. Those guys are in. And I mean, John Tavares is one of them, for example. He's going to make it. And so I thought the teams were fine. I was glad to see Simmons get recognized. I thought he deserved it.
Nice.
He's, like I said before, I really think that he needs to be given some consideration for the next Team Canada because he's that good. Wayne Simmons, he should be thought about.
Will he stick anybody in that game, do you think?
I think, when you look at
you could laugh, Mike, but this guy, when he's on the ice, he's a totally different guy when you talk to him off the ice. I don't know if he could really harness that.
What do you mean? How do you mean?
Because when he gets competitive, he will start pushing guys around. I don't think he could play any other way.
Yeah, and that's why I think that what Canada needs is a little power forwarding in their game. That's why I think that he would be great for them. I think he would be a great fit for them.
Yeah, but right now we're talking All-Star game and just we're just talking about his division. But if there's a guy in the All-Star game that is not going to sort of play well with others, it's going to be Wayne Simmons.
Yeah, you're right.
Sounds like a guy the NHL is definitely going to want in an All-Star game.
Hey,
no, you're definitely right. I mean, but he'll be one of the more popular guys there too. I mean, he'll have fun with people. He'll do something really crazy for the shootout. He's that kind of guy. He's definitely.
And remember, he was a Kings draft pick, so they'll get a lot of play in Southern California. There, he was a guy who slept in his car. I mean, literally slept in.
I know he wasn't supposed to make the team.
No.
There's great stories about him.
Yeah.
Out there, and he does have the thinnest chicken legs we've ever seen.
Yeah, he'll be a big hit, but like I said, if there's a tripping or something, I'm not going to be shocked.
Yeah, and he won't. And if there's a power play, he's going to go to his spot and he's not going to move. That's the thing. That it doesn't. You're going to have to hit him hard to get him out of there. Yeah. So that's he's going to have it. That's he's claimed one part of the ice on every power play, and that's where he is. And teams know that he's there, and yet he's still puts in goals. They know exactly. I mean, the Flyers' power play could not be more predictable.
It's true.
Than it is, but still it's had success this year. A couple quick little things here. So this story just came out on a report, and I'm trying to find exactly where it was. I guess it's on Yahoo, that the IHF could act shootouts for the gold medal games in the future.
Yeah, there's been some talk about after the U.S. Canada final, that especially from Hockey Canada and maybe even from
but I think both sides were in agreement on that.
Right, and I was just and USA Hockey too, because they didn't. This was going on before that final, that they would like something, either 4-on-4 or 4-on-4 to 3-on-3, something to take away the possibility of a shootout or the likelihood of a shootout, like the NHL did with 3-on-3 overtime. I think that like I said, I said going into that overtime, I wanted the game to be decided in overtime, no matter who won, because then there would be less angst about it. And I think the angst about this game is equal to what happened in Nagano in 1998. I think that that there was a cry that Canada cannot be eliminated because Dominic Hasek stopped 5 people in a shootout. Well, yeah, they can. That's the rules. So change the rules, and then we won't have to worry about this anymore.
Yeah, there you go. Of course, we have to mention the fact that Enroth was picked up last night in the middle of the night at 1 a.m.
The first trade of 2017, thank you very much, was pulled off by Lou Lamoriello.
That's right, at 1 a.m. Eastern time.
Yes.
That's just so funny because I crashed early last night, so waking up to see like in the middle of the night, as old people do, wake up at like 3 in the morning, and see on my phone that 2 hours ago there was a trade mentioned. It's just kind of crazy. So it's really good.
Well, so for Enroth, it's good for my fantasy team because I have Enroth as my backup. But it's good. It's good because it shows you that these guys do have value in other teams and other systems. Just because one team casts you aside doesn't mean you can't play the position anymore.
Well, he went from being the 4th string in Toronto to playing in Toronto to being the 4th string in Anaheim playing for San Diego. So I'm sure he's happy with that. But he's behind Gibson, Bernier, and Dustin Tokarski. So unless there's massive injuries, I don't think Enroth is going to get much of a chance. But
but weird things happen.
He was going to get
maybe ahead of Tokarski. He might be ahead of Tokarski, actually.
Yeah, I think he's probably ahead of Tokarski.
In their minds. I mean, they're not going to trade for the backup for an AHL team like
they just signed Tokarski to an extension. So.
Oh, no, he's good, but I think Enroth's a little better.
Yep.
It's a two-way deal. I mean, it's more. I think that this is going to be. But they did, because this comes in the heels of Toronto, of course, picking up their backup the other day.
Yeah, picking up McElhinney, and then just a little bit of trivia. This is the 3rd goaltender trade between Toronto and Anaheim since the draft. 3.
Wow.
They traded Freddie Anderson for the 1st and the 2nd. They traded Bernier in a separate deal for a conditional draft pick, and now they've traded Enroth for a 7th round draft pick in 2018. So when the James Van
if you're at Anaheim, you have to question yourself for a second thinking about this. Okay, I'm the Ducks. I'm a Stanley Cup contender. For goaltenders, you know where I'm going to look? I'm going to look to Toronto. They're going to help me out. They're going to bring me. It's just kind of. Well, I mean, I know what you're saying.
Well, I mean, what I was going to say is that when the James Van Riemsdyk gets pulled off at the deadline, we know that Garrett Sparks or Antoine Bibeau is going to be included in the deal because it's going to have to be a goaltender in this deal.
Right. Now, McElhinney was apparently a Babcock move. Let's just say this. It's a Lamoriello move based on the fact that he knows that Babcock was not going to play Bibeau and not going to play Enroth. So, I heard Babcock legitimately pulled for this himself. Like, this was something that he said, I want this done. This was the first time I heard that he actually said that this is the guy, I want this guy. And they went with
it. So we look at that. So Babcock likes him. He wants him. Tortorella didn't like him. He didn't want him. It's right.
Yeah.
This isn't the first time that Babcock has done this. Earlier in the year, They picked up Ben Smith off of waivers from Colorado. Ben Smith was with the Leafs last year.
Right.
And Ben Smith immediately went into the lineup as their fourth line center, and he immediately got Peter Holland, and Peter Holland basically never played consistently again. And only because Ben Smith broke his hand is he not in the lineup right now. But that was clearly Babcock saying, I want this guy. He's on waivers. Pick him up. And I think that was the case here but I think the realization was he was never going to play Enroth again. And he was never going to play Bibo. They played back-to-back games last week against New Jersey, a team that cannot score, and he played Freddie Anderson back-to-back nights. So that tells you he has no confidence in Antoine Bibo, and probably because he's young, but he hasn't shown a lot either. So
this is the right move. This is the right move for them. I mean, it's a good pickup for them, I think.
Yeah, I think it's a good pickup for him. I think it's an excellent pickup. It's just, like I said, it's just weird how these quick decisions are made, or at least to us, they look like quick decisions. Like, you know what? I'm just done with this guy.
Oh, yeah. That was that. Then that's how this went down.
It happens like this with kickers in the NFL. The same.
It really feels like a kicker.
They do get the same treatment. They do.
I totally agree with that. So finally, our crazy stat of today, before we get out of here, it comes from Alex DeBrincat, the much maligned Alex DeBrincat, who has been. He
can't play either.
Who can't play. And yet now has 34 goals in 35 games with the Erie Otters in the OHL. He's a goal a game player in the OHL at the 35 game part. So that's a crazy statistic. You know.
Well, he's got strong. All right, never mind.
Yeah, something. The Predators have claimed Derek Grant off of waivers today. That's also out there. Not a whole lot going on with that one. And then I had something on Yager, who comes out and says, I feel so good I can go to 55.
Yarmir, just get to next year. Seriously.
Yeah, I know.
He can't drive 55. No, just.
I know. And how about Michael Bodker last night, okay? After
the much maligned Michael Bodker.
After 3 goals all year, scores 3 goals in the first 2 periods of the game last night. But yeah, that was, he has been much maligned for a good reason. I mean, he's been really invisible this year.
But you know what this tells me? If San Jose were to play Edmonton in the playoffs, they'd win 4 games to 1 in a series. They would.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Because that team is veteran enough that there's nothing Edmonton can do to beat them.
Yeah. That's true. Austin Matthews with a great quote when asked about the All-Star game says, I know what I'm capable of.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I was on that conference call, and he has a right to be a very confident kid. He is at 19 years old. Not to say he's mastered every aspect of the National Hockey League, not even close, but he knows he still has lots of things to learn. But based on scoring 21 goals in 39 games, he's doing pretty damn good so far.
When Mike Babcock says, I don't really tell him anything anymore, that's an indication that he's doing pretty good.
Yeah, that's doing that. Yeah, and this was crazy too. So Andre Kopitar is a great chef in the city. Anze Kopitar yesterday passed Wayne Gretzky on the Kings' all-time goal list. Now that when you say that, okay, that's one thing. But when you think about it for a second, okay, Kopitar has been a star player for a really long time. He's been he's a definite. I mean, he's often won 2 Stanley Cups. He's a huge player.
Yeah.
I think of Gretzky's time in LA as small. Like I think of him like, okay, he was there for just a brief period. Like I think of LA, Gretzky was there for a while, but in reality, you don't think of Gretzky as all the goals he scored in Edmonton.
It was 6 years.
6 years, right? Which is still that's amazing. But you would not think that Kopitar. If you asked me, Kopitar, I would say Kopitar definitely has more goals as a King than Gretzky has as a King, right? Because he's been. I mean, but he just passed him yesterday. Kind of struck me as surprising.
Here's the best thing I could say about Wayne Gretzky. Even when in our minds or somebody's minds, they would say Wayne Gretzky sucked. Even with his last year with the Rangers, and that was not a great team, he still had 53 assists and 62 points.
I know.
I mean, come on.
No, I mean,
it was 8 years in LA for Gretzky. 8. 87 to 90.
It was so much I don't know. To me, it just felt like not the scoring machine that he was.
Well, he had 168 points. He had 163 points. He was a scoring machine.
No, he was, and then errors and all that stuff. But anyway, I thought that was great. Also, who the sixth guy in points is this year in the NHL? This was really interesting.
Sixth guy in points.
The number 6 in points right now is Brent Burns. How about that?
That's pretty good.
Got 16 goals and 26 assists.
He's definitely a Norris candidate.
Yeah, I mean, and he is just it's an amazing thing. I mean, that's an incredible for a defenseman. I mean, he's just ridiculous right now. He's just
a better defenseman than he used to be. He's still not like at a Drew Doughty, Ryan McDonough caliber. He's not. I think people have tried to push him in that direction because of his great points and likability and great beard. But I think at the end of the day, his defense still isn't where those guys' defense is.
And bad.
Where I think the best in the NHL is keeping the puck at the point on power plays and getting the puck on net. Like, I think that is where Brent Burns just kills everybody else. Like, that's where he is ridiculous. That's where he gets so many of his points. Yeah. He's just ridiculous at his ability to stop the puck from being cleared and turn that into a shot the other direction. That's his game, and it's impressive to have and to be 6th in scoring at this point, as an NHLer, as a defenseman. My goodness. So, and then I guess the last thing would be the concept that you guys probably got into yesterday, but I didn't. You get Matthews, you get Laine is both into the All-Star game, of course. Both earned $212,000 as a result of it. Which
I said would happen. That was crazy that people thought it might not.
Right. But what about the defenseman in Colorado? I mean, in Columbus. I mean, he
got screwed. I said it flat out. He got screwed. He's better than Seth Jones. He's better in every facet of the game. Every facet.
Yeah, and we said that. I mean, Seth Jones was out for 5 weeks. Werenski was.
Yeah, it was a really surprising thing that they went with Seth Jones. I wasn't quite sure what they were thinking there. I know it's really just.
I don't want to take anything away from Seth Jones because I like him a lot and I think he's an excellent player. I just think that's how much better Werenski is than so many other rookies and a lot of other defensemen.
Yeah, like you said, he's a Norris candidate.
He is
now as a rookie, which is crazy. You haven't seen that, since. I don't know. I mean, who was the last Norris candidate rookie defenseman? I mean, it's really there's not many.
Was
Gostisbehere. Not a Norris, but I mean, in terms of
like a Norris trophy.
No, I mean,
Norris candidate.
Even Carlson in his rookie year, I don't think was up for it.
I think it was second.
Yeah, it probably goes way back.
I mean, Gostisbehere wasn't a Norris trophy candidate, but he was an impact player as a rookie.
Yes.
Yep. So there you have it. All right. Well, that's all the time I have for today, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. As always, you can support us on HockeyBuzz at patreon.com/hockey. We really appreciate the support there, and we are getting through our list of talking to some of you individually. It's a lot of fun. If you haven't heard from us yet, it's because we didn't get your request. So make sure you email Eklund@HockeyBuzz.com and put Patreon chat in your subject, and I will get to you as soon as I see it because I'm really having a good time. I've talked to like three or four people so far. It's just been a blast. So we'll talk soon. Remember, guys, without the buzz, it is just hockey. We will talk to you tomorrow.